things like that.
So you're saying with the dual ruler, you choose because you've done enough homework that it's obvious to you. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, how do you determine, um, if, we've talked about where they are, what condition they are. I mean, do you have any other ways that you can tell, like, if the person, say the murderer, will be caught? I mean, how do you determine anything like that, like if you'll be caught or who did it, kind of a
Well,
thing?
the 10th house is being caught. The 10th house is
Okay.
facing the judge, and of course,
Yeah.
the 12th house is going to prison.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking at the 10th and the 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
So
was wondering about that.
coming back on the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto again.
Yeah.
My people, my research group. All right, we went through all kinds of stuff. We pull up. We had over 2,700 marriages. So we knew the wife and the husband. We had uh, death time people die, and they die plus the natal chart, over 6,000 of them. And we took all kinds of stuff, car accident, stuff like that. And the marriage, we pull out all the chart that had Aquarius, Pisces, and Scorpio on the seventh house. We pulled them all out, and
Okay.
we tried to use see just Mars for Scorpio and so forth. And we found out
Okay.
that with the chi-square against the control group, we got higher chi-square with when we use the modern planet than when we use the old planet like Jupiter for Pisces and Mars for Scorpio and all that.
So you did better like when you just used Mars for Scorpio, and what would you use for Aquarius then, Saturn or Uranus?
Uranus.
Okay.
And we find out that the modern planet give you better statistical uh, uh, truth.
The modern planet. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
people that use, you know, there's a problem with astrology
Mm-hmm.
because you know, like I was saying before, I was booked up a year in advance with my client from early 70, and I would do a year update, and after I come off the phone, I, they say, let me talk to Carol. That's my wife. They would make an appointment for a year from then because they know if they didn't make an appointment, they probably would never get on to the rotation. People says, oh, I've done 10,000 clients. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you do 10,000 clients, you're not a good astrologer. Because if you're a good astrologer, I had 1,800 clients. Take 4 a day, 5 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't take anymore because I was booked up, 4 a day, every day, 5 days
How
a
would a
week.
new astrologer do that? How would somebody starting out, how do they start to get booked like that? What would you tell them to do?
Well, first of all, is that I know that I've talked to a lot of astrologers and they shrug their shoulder. You gotta, I wouldn't do a new client, unless I rectify their chart. You
Oh,
got a good,
absolutely.
you got a good rectification, your timing is going to be good. So they're going to come back because the timing is good. When you
Yeah,
say
you're right.
this is going to happen this week, you
Now,
know,
how do you
it
rectify a
happened.
chart? Because you're right. Most of the people I talk to, their charts are way off. And you're right. That's where it starts, is getting the right chart to begin with. So how do you do it? How do you rectify?
Yeah. And the biggest research that we've done, we started, and I finished it up by myself, is to use eclipses, new moon, to predict what's going to go on in one's life.
Now, how do you do
To,
that?
to me, of all the stuff that I ever discover in astrology, all right, this is number one, 110% better than anything. And I've discovered a lot of stuff in astrology, a
Tell me
lot of
about it.
stuff.
Tell me, I mean, I notice that things kick off like a bang with eclipses. I mean, what is it with you? What do you look for in an eclipse?
Well, what I found out is that the eclipse, you know, will tell you what to expect in the next 6 months. A new moon, what to expect in it. It's like if I take even like my chart when I
Mm-hmm.
got my hockey accident and I
Mm-hmm.
ended up in the hospital. The eclipse spelled that out. It was right on Mars
Hmm.
in Leo.
Oh,
The eclipse was there. So when I moved to Connecticut, because I was in a hospital in Montreal for 6 months because I had a staph infection. They didn't know what to do with it. 1952, no penicillin, no nothing. All right.
oh, yeah.
And so my sister lived in Connecticut and she said, "Why don't you come in Connecticut?" They told me I would never walk in my life. So I was on crutches. So she says, I can drop you at Yukon. I don't live too far from the University of Connecticut and pick you up at nighttime. So when I moved to Connecticut, the eclipse was right on my nadir, my
Okay.
fourth house class. When I lost my mother, the eclipse was in the 10th house. When I lost my father, the eclipse, and I can take Carol's events and stuff like that. And but remember, when I say the eclipse, I use two eclipse and two new moon because I do the backward transit.
What do you mean a backward transit? I'm not sure what you
Well,
mean by that.
I was lecturing at some universities in Wisconsin. I forgot what university a long time ago. And this woman says to me, that's when I started writing software back in early 1980. I started writing software on the computers. And she said, you ought to put backward transit in your computer. So the backward transit is that you find out how many days that you're old right now. Of course, to me is 91 years,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh
and
my
go
God, you're
backward
91?
go
Okay.
backward the same amount of days, backward
Hmm.
in time, and draw a chart for that day, for the time you were born, and that's a backward eclipse. So so the backward eclipse work tremendously.
Wait, let me get this straight. So you get the eclipse and you go back your age and so your age is 91, you would go back 91 days and do it for the time you were born, and that's your backwards transit. Is that what you're saying?
Well, 91 days. If you look uh, at transit, you got to back off 365 and a quarter every year of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And backward in time to me, I don't know how far down it would go, but it would be in the 1800. I was born in 1934.
Well, let's say I'm 65. So if I did a backward transit, I would take the eclipse, but I'd go like 65 years, 65 days back and then do that chart as a backwards eclipse.
No, not 55 days back.
Okay.
If you're 55 years old, you got to times 55 times 365 and a quarter. And that
Oh,
tells you how many days.
okay.
So it's thousands and thousands of days. And you go back and you know, our software is able to find the eclipse that happen every year, two eclipse every year normally,
Oh,
and a
okay.
monthly eclipse. And and sometimes the backward eclipse points to more what's happening, uh, uh, you know, than the forward eclipse. But the four of them, I tell you, when I take the United States chart and the moon, the one that I use as 9 degrees Sagittarius rising, 934,
Oh, good.
and
That's what I've been using. Okay. Nine Sag.
Sagittarius
Yeah.
rising. The Sibley's chart
Yeah.
has 12 degrees Sagittarius rising, but I use 9, I rectified it to 9. And the moon in that chart is into uh, Aquarius,
Mhm.
28 degrees, I think, of Aquarius. And it rules the eighth house of the United States chart. You can take every president that ever, when they die, I predicted Carter's death with that because the eclipse was eating either the 10th house, the eighth house of planets in the 10th, or the eighth house. When every president that died. And I found out also that this technique uh, also is great to rectify chart because somebody give you a timing and you say, give me a couple, two, three things in your life. And if they don't match the eclipse and the new moon, you got the wrong chart. You got the wrong time.
Okay, so you also use them when you're rectifying, to go back and see if you've got the right chart then. That's one of the ways you rectify.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's one of the lectures that Laura wanted me to do a UAC. I never, this is the first time I explained it to the public. I never
Oh,
wrote
thank you.
an article on it. Why don't I write an article on it till I really lectured on it and they got it on tape? Because how many things that lecture that or conference that I went to, and I
Mm-hmm.
go listen to somebody, and this is something that I lectured to or wrote about, 10 years ago.
Right.
And I used to travel with Lorraine Welsh, and she was the editor of the NCGR journal, and she was a good astrologer. And I used to call her my adopted mom because, and she used to, you know, I'd say, Mom, if you can pay your plane fare, then you can room with me. And I'll buy you your dinner and everything else, your drink and all. Just play your. So she used to come with me at conferences, and she used to elbow me. Alfie, this is something you wrote in the journal. He's making it his. Stand up and tell him. I can't do that. I got 5 planets in the fifth house: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter in the fifth house in Libra, intercepted. So I'm not, I work like hell, and I don't say, well, I did this, I did this, I did that, you know.
Right.
And so she used to get up and say, wait a minute, you're taking advantage of that. This is Alfie stuff. And the guy says, I'm doing it a little different. She say, uh-uh, I know what Alfie was doing. You're doing the same. So the guy would say, okay, it's Alfie stuff. I stole it.
Yeah, because I mean, first time I know I'm hearing you talk about the power of eclipses, certainly, and that's something to look for. It
So
helps you with timing also about when something's going to happen.
yeah, so this is why this is the first time I talk about my finding in the eclipse and new moon in
Hmm.
public, you
Oh,
know.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what
because
else should we know about that, though? I mean, what else can you, I mean, how can we use it? I mean, what are we looking for, in other words?